Great being in Sacramento on a day without rain. That's great. I love that.
Yes.
And everyone's been great. Just having a good time.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome to hear. And all the fans have been excited to see you. Just excited to have you.
Yeah, it's a good crowd here in Sacramento. We love
Yeah.
coming to these conventions.
As a matter of fact, I think the first time I was ever on stage with you, Bret, was here in Sacramento.
That's right, at Stage 9 in Old Town Sacramento.
That's right.
That's right. He said, "What are you doing? Get out of this job as quick as you can." He said, "You want some advice, kid? Run."
I was very surly at that time, I guess. Hadn't had enough sleep or something, so.
That's not true. He did not say that to me.
No, we've had a lot of fun up here.
Absolutely.
Although, thinking back, I also had one of the worst experiences.
I know what story you're going to share.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was up here at Stage 9 over in Old Sacramento and doing an art thing, and the owners took me out to dinner the night before, and we were at a really nice steakhouse, but I got a bad steak. And I got to my hotel room, and about 11 o'clock at night, I'm thinking, oh, man, this. And not to be totally gross, but I started throwing up. And I had food poisoning until about 4 in the morning. I was just in the bathroom just kind of waiting, and oh, my gosh, kill me now. And then we had to go on stage about 10:30 in the morning for an interview. And I was still green, I think. And just like, now, how are you doing? Go, I'm great. That was a toughie. That was tough. But show must go on.
You've done a lot in Sacramento, actually. What is the Holiday Light show in Old Sacramento that you've narrated?
A Holiday Light show, which is kind of the history of Old Sacramento.
Yeah.
With Mark Twain and some other people who figure heavily in Sacramento's history, and I'm the voice of all of that. And that's the people that ran Stage 9 got me to do that. And I finally saw it about a year or so ago. Yeah, so I've never seen it. And I just recorded that in my little studio at home, and there you go. So you never know where your voice is going to pop up.
I love that. Sacramento history. And I split my time between LA and the area, Sacramento area. So, yeah, we're up here a lot.
Yeah, you have family in the area?
Family in the area.
I have a lot of friends.
Everyone, I know that y'all have plenty of questions for them. So if you want to form a line over here on my right side, then we can have that way everyone gets a chance to ask their questions.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be about Sacramento. It can be about anything.
Yeah, we like all cities. We can talk about...
Yeah, you know more about it than we do.
Hello, gentlemen. Bill, my question is, as an aspiring voice actor, what's some of the best advice and training you got from your mentor, Daws Butler?
Okay, for those of you who don't know, Daws Butler was a fantastic voice actor in the 60s, 70s, did a lot of the Hanna-Barbera characters, Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, about 40-some major characters. And when I moved out to Hollywood in 1986, someone said, well, you're going to go into animation. If you'd like to do that, you ought to take classes from Daws Butler. And I'm saying, like, the Daws Butler, the guy that does... And, yeah, give him a call. And he was the nicest guy. He sounded like one of his characters, Captain Crunch, his regular, the old cereal thing. Ahoy, mateys. Kind of sounded like that. And I called him up. Oh, come on over to the house. And, it's like $10 it was on a Wednesday night. Oh, if you don't have $10, don't worry about it. And we went and... I took classes from a lot of people that went on to great success. Corey Burton, Nancy Cartwright, a lot of people were in our class.
Big names.
And he really said it's not voice acting, it's voice acting. Emphasis on the acting. That's more important than the voice. There's a lot of people that can do voices but can't act. And that's a technique that you can practice and learn. And that's really the trick. And that's what makes animation actors. It's really no different than screen acting or stage acting or anything else. A little different technique, different characters. Your character might have a wacky or goofy voice, but it's the acting that brings the words off the page that really make the difference. And that's where Bret's amazing with that. And because not only do you sound like Mickey, you are Mickey. It's that personality, and that's the hard part.
Yeah, and I think it's often overlooked. And I know, you get that advice. You got that advice from Daws. I actually got that advice from you. So I often say that it was Bill who taught me. It's not about so much about making the sound of the voice or the character as it is the acting behind it. And of course, with these characters, the sound is important. With a legacy character, you're emulating and hopefully carrying on a legacy of a character that existed long before you, so that's important. But I know you've shared with me, Wayne Allwine, who did Mickey's voice before me, said, I wish I did a character that not everybody could do, because everyone comes up to you and goes,
yeah.
But if it were just doing a high-pitched voice, that'd be one thing. But Mickey does require a lot of personality, and I think for me, knowing the history of Mickey is very important. Where Mickey came from informs who he is today. And if you stray too far from that, then it's not really Mickey anymore.
Right.
So you do need to know the character personality and the do's and don'ts. And then, of course, the acting. You need to make it sound as natural as possible.
Right.
Mickey is everyone's best friend. And so if he doesn't sound like your best friend, you're not gonna buy it.
Yeah. And that's the hardest part of voice acting. And I always think the hardest part also in learning this craft was I would say, I got to get Bill out of the way. In other words, I have to put Bill up on the shelf and then let Goofy take over, because if I'm worrying, you're in a booth basically like this with a microphone and a script, and there's people on the other side of the glass who are recording this, and you'll see them, going like this. And you think they're saying something like, this guy's really horrible, can we get someone else? And they're probably saying, no, I wanted ranch dressing on that salad.
This salad's wrong.
And you never know what they're saying, but you kind of take it to your mind. But you got to get that out of your head, so you just concentrate on the script and the scene that you're doing. And I got to get Bill out of the way so I don't screw it up for Goofy.
The benefit of characters like these, though, is that they are so pleasant and loved that even on the worst day that you're having personally, you can go in. And there's been several times when I've gone in and I'm like, this is not a good day for me to be doing this. But the minute you snap into that character and you start reading the scripts, you can't help but be happy knowing that you're portraying these characters who are just having fun. So
there's a lot of enthusiasm behind their voices.
Absolutely.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you for the question.
That's a good question.
And it's such a small crowd, not to step on your toes, Marcos, but if you guys just want to shout them out, I think we can.
Yeah, maybe
we're
if
also
we can
open
hear
to
it.
that.
Or
raise a
come
hand.
up to the front. And
Hi, I just want to know if either of you two were to go to Disneyland, what would that experience be like for you?
Oh, yeah, we go down there quite often.
Bill has a chariot that he gets lifted up on.
Hello.
And he waves.
Hello, regular people.
Yeah.
No, it's like anyone else. We just go down there. We were down there not too long ago for an event that they had. What was the event?
I can't remember.
I know we were over there in California Adventure doing something.
It was a Disney Vacation Club.
Yeah.
They just had a bunch of people. They kind of took over California Adventure, so we were running around. So we
it's like
literally ran into
else.
each other there.
Although, I don't know if you do this, but sometimes if you see what we call the walk-arounds, the people in the Goofy costume, the Mickey costume, and sometimes I'll go up and whisper to them, and in 36 years of doing this, they've never broken character and talked back. Because they're told not to. And they'll go what's called backstage or off, where people can't see, and then they'll talk to you. But they never. They'll just
break the pantomime.
Gosh, I love you and all that kind of stuff. But they never have broken character in all of those years.
I refuse to do the voice. I won't go up to them and do it because I've learned that a lot of people go up to the characters and do their Mickey voice.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like... It's great. So I don't want to be just the random person because I know. But if I'm introduced to them and they're like, this Mickey, this is your voice, then I get the similar reaction where...
Yeah, well, that's, paraphrase, I usually say, I'm Bill Farmer, I'm your voice.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot.
That makes a lot. Yeah.
See, I don't
know my name.
If I say my name, I still don't think that gives me any
You'll
credence.
get a better reaction, Sure, that's it. That's
Okay.
goofy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fun. Also, sometimes, I've done times, there's little jokes or something like that. Like if they're in line for Pirates of the Caribbean, and there's some guy, and he's got the kid on his shoulder, and the kid's, I've been here 12 hours, I want to go home, and I'll just kind of go. And the kid looks around. I heard Goofy. Shut up, go to sleep.
No, you don't. Yeah,
That's fun
but to answer your question, I mean, we go to Disneyland just to have fun.
Yeah.
It's when I go, usually it's kind of very under the radar.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just go and ride the rides and eat all the food that's not that great for you, but you can't help it.
Yeah, that's one of the best things about doing this voice, I think, is that Goofy's famous and I'm not.
Yes.
So you can kind of turn it on and off. You get around celebrities that are like face famous.
Yeah,
and they always have to worry about, being recognized or going to the store and all that kind of stuff. That we don't have that problem.
No, I show up and I'm wearing a hat and sunglasses, and then after too long, I realize nobody's recognizing me, so I take off the hat. Like maybe the bald head will give it away, then that doesn't work. And then I start saying, that still doesn't work.
Then they do.
But it is cool to go, I will say, and to watch the show. So we do so much behind the scenes in a booth in a little place in Burbank, and you have to imagine all that magic that's at the theme parks or on the cruise ships. So when you're there and you actually get to watch the parade come by or the castle show at Walt Disney World, like you start to get all the goosebumps. It's really cool to see, one, the audience interaction, because it's not like you're on stage in a theater where you get to see the audience applaud and how they react. So when you get to see their reactions to the stuff you've worked on and really put so much into, it's pretty special.
And I think a lot of people still have the misconception that we are watching the cartoon that we are voicing. No, the voices are first, and then they animate. And in the old days, we recorded ensemble, where we'd all be in the same studio, like when I did a series, Goof Troop. There was like 10 microphones, and we were all doing it and doing it like a radio play. But now, with, people's schedules and everything else, I'll do my lines on a Monday. Bret might come in on Tuesday to do his lines, and then they edit them together, and it sounds like we're in the same room talking. But that's not the way it is. It's just very kind of lonely. They give you a sheet of paper with your lines, and you do them, and that's about it.
The day I show up and see Bill's car in the parking lot, I get excited. I'm like, we get to run into each other.
We can actually talk.
There's people here, I know.
So it's events like these that I haven't seen
we spend more
Bret
time
in a long
together.
time.
I know.
Yeah, we get to talk and have dinner and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's it can be kind of lonely in that regard.
I know. I'd like to take you out for a steak tonight.
You can, yes. I know a good place. Yeah.
Oh, we have a question over here in the front row. Oh, sorry, the gentleman. Sorry. Oh, I see I'm doing a bad job. How about you, Toodles, right here in the purple ears, and then we'll go back to the gentleman. Aislinn, you see, now you're giving away that I know you. Do you have a question? Mickey's birthday is November 18th, 1928. That's a good question. Good question. Okay, we'll come back to you, Taylor, who I don't know. These are my nieces in the front row. They've been preparing these questions for us. Oh, yes, sir.
Two-part question.
Okay.
How did you get this gig? And are there any other voices that you've done outside of Disney?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Should I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it'll be 14 years for me voicing Mickey in June. So I started in 2009, and the way I got into it was I got an email that outlined the audition process. At the time, it was for an understudy position. So I mentioned Wayne Allwine earlier. He was the third voice of Mickey, and he did it from 1977 up till 2009. And unfortunately, in 2009, he was having some health difficulties, which made it harder and harder to do Mickey's voice. And so they started to look for somebody who could work with him to take over. That's where I came in, got the audition information, submitted mine, went through the process, and then unfortunately he passed away before I was ever officially cast. So I didn't get to work with him per se, but surprisingly I learned a lot from him just by listening to a lot of the stuff he had done. A lot of projects we did early on were adding a few lines to something that already existed, which meant I had to re-record the entire show. So really I was kind of listening to Wayne and then repeating his lines, and I learned a ton that way from him. I also learned a lot, via people who knew Wayne, like Bill and his wife Rusi. And I was an artist beforehand. I had never done voice acting, but I loved Mickey. I loved Walt Disney, and I loved the story behind the character. And I always wanted to work for Disney, but I never dreamt it would be voicing the mouse.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be an artist, which I do still, and I've been very fortunate enough to do Disney art as well. But I like to say I literally tripped and fell into it, and it's the best job I've ever had, and I can't imagine doing anything else. I think, what was your second part? I'm sorry.
Voices outside of Disney.
Oh, none for me. You're gonna get that from Farmer. I just do Mickey, but outside of Disney, I do the art. I think that's why I haven't really pursued other voice acting.
Well, my background goes into, out of college, I got into radio as a DJ and a engineer at some radio stations, and I just started developing voices and impersonating things when I was on the radio. There were country stations, little ones in Kansas and Oklahoma and Texas, and they'd have country things, so I'd bring in country stars, like they'd have Pat Buttram, and well, I'd talk like this, and Bill, it's great to be here on the radio with you, and hey, it's great to see you, Pat. Good to see. I would just start doing these weird little things, and that turned into a stand-up career in Dallas. I started doing stand-up comedy, and then did that for about 5 or 6 years, and then an agent that I was able to get in Dallas finally said, in 1986, said, well, all the voices you do, you ought to go out to Hollywood and see what happens out there. So I got an apartment in Hollywood, left my wife in Dallas, and I was just kind of going back and forth and commuting for about a year almost. And about 5 months after I got to Hollywood, my agent said, hey, do you do any of the Disney characters? Because it was right when they were doing the Disney Channel, on TV, and you might hear an old goofy cartoon and something new. And at the time, there were several kind of people just kind of halfway doing Goofy and Mickey and Donald and all this. Like down in Florida, they might have a guy doing it for records, a guy doing it at the park. In fact, there was one guy, Jack Wagner, who did the announcing at Walt Disney, Disneyland, and he did all of them badly.
Yes.
And they wanted to settle, Roy Disney and Michael Eisner wanted to settle on one voice for each of the characters. And it was just, do you do any of the Disney? Well, Goofy was my favorite Disney character, and I'd probably played with that voice ever since I was a kid. And out of about 1,000 people that tried out, because, a lot of people try out for these jobs, they liked mine. And so the first time I actually recorded it was January 23rd, 1987, on a thing called, Mickey's Doggone, or Disney's Doggone Valentine. And I did Goofy and Pluto that same day. And you never know if you're going to do it again. They don't sign you to, you're now the voice of Goofy forever. No, it's for that one job. And people always think that you're hired by Disney as an employee. No, we've never been employees of the Disney company. We are independent contractors. So every job I do, still, after thousands of them over the years, new contract. You go in, you do your thing. We're like the plumber. We come in, we do a job, we go home, And so they kept calling me, and then I got a series. First one was Goof Troop in the early 90s and stuff, and all sorts of stuff, toys and record albums and cartoons, and then movies and stuff. And now, 36 years later, we just did actually, that's going to be, doesn't even have a name yet. I don't think it had a name.
I don't think you're allowed to say that.
Well, you can say,
I didn't say anything, just for the records.
I don't know anything about it. I hear we're doing it, so, but I don't remember what I did in it.
Neither do I, but.
So we're doing stuff and we have Mickey Mouse Funhouse that we're recording still, and you never know what comes up. Tomorrow it might be a new thing. Hey, they need you for something new, and you go in the next day and do it.
Next week I have one line. A session for one line.
Oh,
and
really?
I think it's Hiya Pals.
That's a tough day.
Yeah,
and you
that's-
mentioned other voices. Since I was an impressionist when I did stand up, I've done a lot of other voices. Most notably, like in for Warner Brothers in the movie Space Jam, I did Sylvester Yosemite Sam, Foghorn Leghorn. I did Bugs and Daffy in an episode or two of Robot Chicken. I've probably done about 30 or 40 different incidental characters. See, when they hire you in Screen Actors Guild, you can do like 3 voices for the same price. They get like 2 freebies. And so and like Mickey and the Roadster Racers, that's like the mayor and a character,
yeah.
Mr. Bigby, and a bunch of other little one-liners that might have one line and they ask you to come up with a character. There's a show Amphibia, which I do for Disney, where I play a character named Hop Pop, and so different characters. 7D with the 7 dwarves. Of the traditional dwarves, I do Sleepy, but in that show I did Doc, so you never know. And incidental voices.
Changes all the time.
So yes, I've done a lot of other ones as well, but Goofy's by far the most popular and important one.
When you're acting in a booth alone, do you find it weird to try to read a script and act without somebody acting back to you?
I do. Yeah, it's odd. You've got to ask the director, and it's really like a Zoom call now. Especially that started with. I have a studio at home, and my son's an audio engineer, so he runs the session. So now I don't generally even go into the studio, and it's a little odd because you have to rely on the director. Like if I say the line, I've got to, okay, they'll correct. Oh, Mickey's 30 feet away. And, and the room's on fire. It changes your acting depending on what the scene is, and we don't know what that is. And a lot of times, though, they'll say, let's do a play-in. Bret had been here earlier and did the line, and so they play his line, then I can respond to it. But most of the time, it's just kind of coming up with your head and you hope you're right. And I'll do 2 or 3 little in a row. I'll do like 2 or 3 takes. And is that kind of what you want? Yeah, number 2 was great. So, that was...
Yeah. Acting definitely requires imagination. But in this scenario, in voice acting, yes, you are lacking the play off of another person or another character in a voice, and it does affect the way you do reads. And I always say, thankfully, having done this now a while, I've got a pretty good reference in my head that I can go back to. Like I pretty well know how Goofy's going to read a line or how Minnie is going to read a line. But those times when you do get a playback, it definitely makes your line read that much better. And then the times when you do get to work off of somebody in an ensemble situation, it's so much better. And I keep bringing up Wayne, but Wayne and the previous voice of Minnie Mouse, Russi Taylor, were married in real life. So Mickey and Minnie were married in real life, and I always am envious of that real life relationship they shared, because you heard it in the way they portrayed those how Mickey and Minnie interacted with each other. Yeah. And now and I got to work with Russi for the better part of my career, and she and I did have times, and she made the time to sit down with me in a booth and just kind of rehearse, so that we could kind of develop a little bit of a repertoire. And I really do like Caitlin Robruck, who voices Minnie now, but I'll never have that type of relationship that Wayne and Russi had. I'm always envious of that, because it does play into effect. The fact that Bill and I have become real friends in real life definitely informs how I respond to Goofy, how I and how I talk to Pluto.
Hello, I got a bit of a two-parter as well. First of all, I want to ask, have you ever read a line and accidentally laughed too many times as did multiple takes because the line was just so hilarious?
All the time.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. That's
I'm asking because I remember the whole Door to Darkness thing, and people on the internet were laughing at that joke so much, and I'm like, how many times did you have to read that line before you finally got it right and felt laughing?
Well, the Door to Darkness line, to be completely transparent, I don't play video games because I'm no good at them.
Yeah, I'm
Not that
not
I don't
either.
appreciate
I'm not
them,
either.
but I'm terrible at playing video games. And the Kingdom Hearts series is a very complicated plot line that we rarely understand. I do not remember recording the Door to Darkness line. It was only brought to my attention after the fact. Did I record that, or was that a Wayne line?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not sure. What game was that in?
Pretty sure it might have been. Don't quote me on this. Might have been 2.
Okay, if it's 2,
Okay.
then it was Wayne.
Yeah.
Okay, she's shaking her head. She knows. She's new to Kingdom Hearts, so she would know. It's fresh on her mind. So Wayne recorded that one. Okay, phew, that makes me feel better. Because I'm always like, I don't remember that. But no, things like that catch on like wildfire, and people love them, and you know that's great.
Kingdom Hearts is unlike any other thing that we've done, really, because it was produced originally in Japan. And so it was originally voiced by people that studied our voices to learn how to do the character. So I'm listening to the Japanese Goofy in my headphones, and it's kind of locked animation-wise. Normally, we do the voices first, then they animate. This one was done in Japan first, and so it was done in Japanese. And sometimes, at least the Japanese Goofy speaks faster than I speak as Goofy. So I'm kind of rushing they can change the lip flaps around so it looks like I'm saying those words better, but they can't really make it longer or shorter. So if it's 3.5 or 3 3/4 seconds Goofy's line, I've got to do it in 3 3/4 seconds and do it over and over. And so sometimes if you hear that and it sounds like I'm really rushing, like, you know, something fast, that's because the Japanese voice is faster than the English voice. And so I'm stuck doing it in this length of time, whereas if I'm doing it for a new cartoon, I can take as much time and they can shorten it or lengthen it, the line, or you've got a lot more flexibility with it. So, and that, I remember going to a couple of those sessions where they had the gang from Japan over at our sessions. And some of them don't understand English at all.
Yep.
And I'm wondering, okay, why are they at my session wondering what I'm doing is Goofy in English, and they, oversaw it in Japan? It's kind of, I don't know. So
After every
do they even
line, too,
understand what I'm saying, you know?
They all chime in too. It's you're talking about watching directors from behind the glass, and you don't know what they're saying.
Oh,
With
yeah.
This you can hear the Japanese folks discussing, and they discuss for a long time. Like the line would be like, and then and I'm going like, okay, and then they go, hi, okay, that was good.
Yeah.
They liked it.
Yeah.
Like, oh gosh, okay.
And also in that particular game, they film us.
Yes,
they set
do.
up a camera and film us doing the. Why, I don't know. It's going to show up on someone's website someday.
I don't like
AI
seeing me
will
do
fix
it. I hunch my shoulders. And,
A lot of sense.
yeah.
Thank you. The second part to my two-parter question was, how long have you been doing Goofy, actually? I forgot.
36 years.
Not that long. He's kind of new.
So you're the guy who swims with Donald when he keeps saying, this should be a good place to find some ingredients.
Yes.
That's his favorite scene. You always say that's your favorite part of the games. Remember? You always tell me that.
Yeah. Hey, I'm lucky if I remember where my wallet is. You know, people will do that, though. A lot of people come up, and there was this third episode of Goof Troop. You had a dinosaur egg and you put it in a closet. Why did you put it in the closet? I don't even know where my keys are. So it's like, don't try and remember something I did in 1990. I don't remember.
Those are
Very
good
funny.
questions. Thank you.
He only said that line 600 times.
Only 600 times,
Yeah.
and I finally got it right. So.
Do we have Taylor? I mean, you over here? What's your question? Can we take family members on a cruise?
Oh, that's-
that
yeah,
sounds
once in
like
a while.
a fishing question to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
Do you want to go on a cruise? Well, there you go.
Okay. Yes, I can take family members on a cruise, and I'd love to take you someday. Olivia, did you have a question? No? I mean, girl in the purple sweater. Did you have a question? I'm very good with names. John, thanks for that question back there. Chris, no questions? See, I know lots of people. Yes, sir.
Are you guys allowed to improvise at all?
Occasionally.
Yeah, we take a line and we play with it a little bit. Sometimes I'll put it in more goofy vernacular if the writer did not write it the way that I feel like it ought to be said. I'll usually do an improvised version, and if they like that, they'll put it in. If they don't, we usually do it as written. And sometimes you'll do an improvised line, and they'll use whichever one they want. And a lot of times they'll use the improvised line.
Yeah.
So, I like that. That's a little different. Okay, So yes, we do improvise quite a bit.
I've been working on a project lately that it's a lot of content, and the writing, I think they're doing it at a very fast pace. And a lot of times a writer will write something down, and in their head it sounds great.
Yeah.
But then as the minute the character starts saying it, you realize it's not making sense, or that's not how the character would say it. And so I found myself, it's a delicate dance. You don't want to offend the writer by saying, who wrote this? It's terrible. But, I'm like, do you mind if you try it this way? I think this would be better. Or to Bill's point, even just the little things you can throw in there to improvise a little bit. Like if you see the opportunity for a joke, or you see a way to extend the line, or give it a little bit more laughs, or a little bit more life, a lot of times for Mickey, we'll do, I guess, any character, a little pre-life is good. If you notice, like you're coming out of a scene where laughing would be good, or little things like that help a lot. But and then there's always the moments
and
to
then
improvise.
There's also the passive-aggressive technique, where if you do their line really badly,
yes,
and you do yours good, they'll, that's much better. Okay,
I learned that before I was a voice actor. I was an illustrator for Hallmark greeting cards, and I learned that very quickly. We would do the process for doing a greeting card was you do a sketch of, this is my idea for a Christmas scene, and they'd say, great, now take that to final. And so then you'd sit down. This is back in the day. Speaking of AI, this is back in the day when we actually used paint on paper. And I'd do a painting and I'd bring it in, and you'd have, much like our Kingdom Hearts sessions, you'd have a gaggle of people commenting on this artwork. I'll never forget this one. I did a nativity scene for Christmas, and the group's looking at it. This is great. Oh my gosh, I love that little baby Jesus. And someone goes, I don't know. I just think baby Jesus looks like he might have gas. Can we work on that face? Like, I'm
gassy
like,
baby
what?
Jesus.
Like you could barely see it. It's like this is what you could see of him. Like, what do you mean? He's bloated? So I took it back to my desk and I read a book, and then I came back and I said, I fixed it. What do you think? Oh, much better. Much better.
Yeah, and
so yeah.
He looks good with a mustache.
Exactly.
Put on there. Okay, that's.
And it happens in voiceover. Like, why don't you try it like this? And in your head, you're like, that's not going to work. But okay, sure.
And usually they'll come around and do it the right way.
Selfishly, I do kind of enjoy when you know the way it should be done, and you still give them what they want, and then they go, you know what, I was wrong. Let's go with take A. And like,
I
told
knew
you. We could get through this a lot faster if you just listened to me. I'm like that way with all things in life, though.
Or let you.
I'll let Marcos pick. Sorry.
I have to ask, what's your favorite job you've ever done?
Oh gosh, that's quick.
He just admitted he doesn't know where his keys are.
There's usually little pieces of each thing that are really satisfying. Overall, it's usually what the public likes. Like obviously a Goofy movie for me, since it's still popular after all these years, was a great influence. Actually doing it was very difficult because we had to add a lot of emotions that Goofy had never had before. And before that, he'd pretty silly and everything. Now he's got to worry about Max getting in trouble and things like that. How do you do those lines and still make it sound like Goofy? So we had a lot of recording sessions on that to get it right. So it was difficult to do, but the final product I was extremely proud of, and am excited on how popular it still is. But there's other things like Amphibia. I love Amphibia as a series, and I love coming up because I got to come up with Hot Pop's voice, whereas Goofy existed since 1932. So I was stepping into those shoes and doing my best. It was an impersonation of him in the beginning until a couple of years in, and you figure out the character, and after that, it's kind of an extension of you. So it's more of a mixture of you and what went on before. So you give it your own mark. But original voices that you come up with, that's easy to do because you invented it. So you can whatever is you do is right, and that's always nice. So, but there's individual projects. Gosh, that's hard to. It's usually like little pieces of each one that I like. Like that's a good scene or whatever.
Yeah, and as you do more, you think you have a favorite, and then you work on the next project. You're like, that was really cool.
Yeah.
I know. Most recently, I was really proud of the work we did on Mickey Saves Christmas, which was a stop motion animated special that came out this past holiday season. I personally am a big fan of Fantasmic. It's kind of how I learned to do Mickey's voice, was listening to the soundtrack of that show. So when I got to re-record the original Fantasmic and now the Fantasmic in Hollywood Studios as well, that was kind of a big personal milestone for me and a very odd full circle moment. To imagine myself being, 10 years old listening to Fantasmic and now I'm standing on the banks of Rivers of America and hearing Mickey. It sounds like my Mickey. It's like it's a very so those moments I think are the ones for me. Like when I get to work on something that tickles that fandom that exists in me, and I kind of you feel those goosebumps and that little magic gets stirred. That's when I'm really like, wow, this is cool. This is really fun. The rest of the time I'm just like, meh, whatever. No, just kidding. Yeah.
Who else?
Who's
has
next?
one? Yeah.
How about over here? Yeah.
I actually have just 2 questions.
Just 2? We're looking for 3. Anyone with 3 questions, please? 3 questions? Nope. Okay, I guess
2.5. Okay,
yeah.
we'll get.
I just on that topic of people saying things like, "Oh, like what's your character?" different lines. What is just a line that you guys have read and is your favorite to either say or when it's just something that just made you laugh? And what was one of your favorite lines?
Do you have one that pops?
Well,
comes
yeah,
to mind?
I've done this story before, and it, you know which story I'm going to talk about. When Mickey Mouse Clubhouse first started, and I'd record with Wayne and Rusey, we recorded ensemble then. And there was an episode that we did called Dr. Daisy. And Dr. Daisy comes in. She's playing like she's a doctor. So Mickey and Minnie and Goofy go as patients. Just play doctor kind of stuff. And so I had to go in, and my actual line was, as written, I had to say, and I start laughing. I just okay.
I don't know what's funny about that.
They'll never record this, So okay, I'm trying to record. Oh, we got to record it. Okay, so I'm starting to do, say this over, and I couldn't do it without laughing. And so after about 15 minutes, Wayne was over there, and would she blow on my boo boo after that? And then Rusey's falling off the chair laughing. We were laughing for about 15 minutes, and. I think after that we had to do all our stuff solo, so we weren't in the room with each other. So yeah, sometimes, and then after you do that, then you just get the giggles, and every line became hilarious, and so you just start cracking up, and you can't stop, and that was an unusually funny episode, but you never know. You never know what's going to hit you and just crack you up.
Just ruin the session. No, I don't. I wish I had one line like that I could reference. But similarly, on Mickey Mouse Funhouse, if you've ever watched that, the episode's wrapped up with Funny displaying this maquette on the top of his mantle, right? So it's a little statue that represents the journey that we've been on, and there's always like scripted like. And so I just, and they've got those lines in their library. So now I try to think of something really obnoxious every time. It's like Funny as a houseboat. It's like, Like they
Yeah,
never
that's where
keep
you
the
ad
lines
lib.
in, but
There's a lot of stuff
Yeah.
I've done that will never make it to the show.
Yeah.
So, you know.
yeah, it's like, I don't know. But that's when you start getting. That's when you know you're in a giddy mood, when it's like you're at the end of the episode. You're like,
Yeah,
"I
you
almost
get a little
get to
wacky
go
and you
home
start
soon."
ad-libbing and, you know.
You had a twofer, right?
I can only imagine, this is kind of a weird question, but I can only imagine how surreal is it to see, like you guys said that you voiced people who were in Fantastic, you voiced the characters in Fantastic, and how, I feel like it'd just be surreal to witness that kind of thing. So how does it feel for you guys to have that experience?
It's, I mean, to be as cheesy as possible, it truly is magical.
Yeah.
I mean, as you're asking that question, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm getting emotional. I'm big into family, and my family's here with me because I had an experience growing up being influenced by Disney in a way that inspired all of the creative things that I do. Not beyond creative, just the things I've done in life are inspired by those childhood memories.
Yeah.
And so when I see a show like that and I imagine myself at that place, then I think of all the kids or the adults who are watching it and experiencing those same emotions. And that is a very intimate responsibility. It's a privilege to play a role in people's lives like that. I think,
Yeah,
you know,
it is.
It's not lost on us.
And it's kind of interesting if I see myself, and I've done some movies, and I hate to see myself on the camera, but I don't mind hearing myself. And as Goofy, I've learned to appreciate the character kind of outside of myself. It was really cool and kind of gave me goosebumps when I first got to see, like, Prince and the Pauper was the first one I saw on the big screen. It was in front of Rescuers Down Under. And to see my character coming off a big screen and hearing an audience respond to it was really a cool thrill. And when I first saw a Goofy movie in a theater with an audience, that was very special. And I always remember, you talked about the family. I took my son to an early screening of a Goofy movie. It was on the Disney lot, and I mean, like, Michael Eisner sitting right there, Jeffrey Katzenberg, all these guys, Roy Disney, watching this movie, and I'm thinking, I hope they like this, you know. And some of it hadn't even been animated. It was what's called pencil test. And I saw that, and when it was over and we were walking out, my son was crying a little bit. And I said, "What's the matter, buddy? Didn't you like the movie?" And he said, "Well, when Goofy went over the waterfall, I thought that was you." And so I knew, oh, it has heart, you know, and because I don't trust my own instincts about how it plays with an audience, because I'm involved in it, and I can't separate that. But when I hear other people say they liked it, that's very heartwarming and important to me to know that they liked it, because they're coming at it just as someone who saw it as opposed to someone who worked on it and everything. And you kind of invest a little bit more of yourself in something you worked on. And but that's cool. Yeah, there is a magic with it.
Yeah.
And when you hear something that you did at the parks, or a parade, or a record album, which we did a record album recently, and I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And it's called the Mouse Pack.
The Mouse Pack.
It's kind of like a takeoff on the Rat Pack with like Sinatra and all those, and we're all singing those kind of songs. And it's really a good album. I was proud of it. And but when you do something and it turns out really good, it's a great feeling.
Yeah. And, you know, it's worth noting that, and I'm not by any means talking about myself in this situation, but stepping into a role like this and being alongside someone like Bill Farmer or Russi Taylor or even Tony Anselmo, you know, there is so much heart that these performers have put into these characters that's far beyond just doing a voice and just acting and doing a job. Unfortunately, I don't think that's always valued, and I feel very fortunate to have come in at a time when it still was.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing looking forward, you know. There's a lot of opinions, a lot of creative opinions that come into these characters, and you know, for some people they could care less if it's Bill or I or who's doing the voice, as long as it's the character up on screen. So I guess in correlation with your question, I thought it was worth noting that it's, I think what makes it so surreal for me is getting to know that I'm a part of something where these people who are my colleagues are like genuinely care. This is not just a paycheck. This is not just a job that you're doing until retirement. Like, this is something that you actually love doing, and I think it shows in those moments. So. Yeah, thanks for the question. I wish you had 3, but those were 2. Those are okay.
Okay.
That's it. I guess.
And come down and visit us at our table. So, yeah. We're
For your time here. I want to thank
Of course.
for coming. And let's have another round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.